Trying to understand English grammar is like trying to solve a mystery. English grammar is irregular, contradictory, and confusing. Fortunately, though, you don't have to walk these dark streets of grammatical confusion by yourself. I'm English teacher Paul Duke, and on this show I'll be your grammar detective. Each week, we'll investigate communication crimes and suspicious sentences, context clues and example evidence. Together, we'll solve these English mysteries once and for all. Welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. Good evening, Grammar Gumshoes, and welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. It is March 12th, 2024, and I'm thrilled to be here with you once again. I'm your humble host, English instructor and grammar detective Paul Duke. And on this show, I investigate and solve your English mysteries. This evening, we have an excellent, fascinating, enigmatic, mysterious grammar question. Now, you know, a lot of times new viewers of the show join us and ask questions that we've already answered on previous shows. We've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. And in that case, I'll refer that person to the recording on YouTube of that episode on which I answered that question. However, this evening we have a question asked of me that has never been asked before on the show. So whether you're a longtime viewer or a brand new viewer to the show, we have a fascinating question to address this evening. An amazing English mystery. So stay tuned. We'll get to that shortly. In the meantime, I'd love to hear from you guys. So please say hello in the comment thread and tell me where you're watching from. We already have Suan from Malaysia with us. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for all your support and help in sharing this show with our viewers around the world. But please, say hello and tell me where you're watching from. And before we get going, guys, I have a couple of things I want to share with you. A couple of thoughts. I like to start the episode with some thoughts. Now, you know, I look at social media just about every day. I don't spend a lot of time on it. I've got other things to do, such as teaching my students. But I do check in on it because I'm always interested to see what other English instructors and educators around the world are doing. I respect everyone for trying to share their English knowledge with their viewers and their learners around the world. The more education, the better, in my opinion. There's room for every type of English teacher. Obviously, some are better than others, and that's up for you guys to judge. Now, I would say this. There are some social media English teachers who will tell you things like learning English is easy, or learning English is fast, or they'll say you can learn English the easy way, or I guarantee you will be fluent in 3 weeks. These kind of English teachers are offering an easy and fast solution to learning your English. I'd be very, very careful. Very suspicious of those kind of teachers. I'll tell you why. I've taught English for many years. I myself have studied other languages. I learned French, I studied Japanese, and I can tell you, and you probably already know this in your heart, learning a language is not easy. No matter what you do, it's not easy, and it's not fast. And the reason is simple. Every language is incredibly complex. Every language has thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of words to learn. You can't do that quickly. You can't do that easily. Usually, some English teachers actually are born with a special talent for language. And they may be able to learn English quickly because they have a talent for language, just like some people have a talent for math, some people have a talent for art, some people have a talent for music or sports. Language teachers often learn languages themselves quickly, but that doesn't mean most learners can. For the vast majority of language learners, learning a language is a long, challenging, difficult process. And that's okay. Truly, it's okay. It's okay to do difficult things. In fact, I would say for adults, everything is difficult. Life is easy for babies when they're falling on the floor and crawling around and asking mommy to feed them. Those easy days are over once you're an adult. Adults understand that everything in life is difficult. The only question you should be asking is, what do I need to do to get the result I want? And the same with language. Instead of asking teachers, hey teacher, how can I learn English fast? Because I have an exam next week. Well, you're not going to learn a language in a week. Or, teacher, learning is so hard. What's an easy way? Give me some easy tips. Instead of asking those questions, ask this question. Teacher, how can I effectively learn English? How can I become not fluent, but proficient so that the language that I do speak or read or write is accurate, expresses the ideas that I want? That's proficiency, the ability to clearly and precisely communicate. Fluency is the ability to produce lots of language easily without pauses and hesitations. And that's part of it. That's a good goal. But fluency with no proficiency is nonsense, right? I can choose any language, learn 10 words, and then babble them really quickly and say I'm fluent. But until I master proficiency, the accurate use of grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, all of those elements put together, used properly to produce the effective result, that's proficiency. Until I do that, I'm just talking nonsense. So instead of asking how can I learn quickly, or how can I learn fast, or how can I learn easy or easily, ask how you can learn effectively. What are the effective strategies for learning? That's going to help you far more than learning how to do something fast or easy. Because here's the fact. When teachers tell you, you can learn fast or you can learn easy, what they're really doing is telling you, if you buy my program or if you hire my teaching, I promise you fast and easy results. That's a lie. Be very suspicious of that. They're trying to sell you a product or a service. Okay? Because the truth is, there is no easy or fast way to learn a language. It takes a long time and it's very challenging unless you have a mystical born talent. And a few people do. And often they become teachers. But it doesn't necessarily mean you will. So be very careful with that kind of social media educator, okay? Their heart's in the right place. But I believe they're selling you something that doesn't exist. And it won't help you. Instead, learn thoroughly. Take your time. Make learning English a part of your life, right? Make it a daily part of your life, a little bit every day, throughout your life, and you'll become more proficient and more fluent, all right? Study. Studying's hard. There are many, many ways to study. Watching YouTube videos, watching my live stream, reading books, talking with native speakers, talking with learners. All of that combined will help you learn, okay? But there's no one way better than the other. There's no magic formula for this, all right? So be very suspicious of those kind of teachers who promise you fast and easy. I can guarantee you it's well, I don't want to say guarantee, but I would say 99% of the time it's not going to happen. You'll spend money on them, you'll hire them, and you'll just end up having to work hard for a long time on your language. And you'll forget that they promised fast and easy results. Beware of fast and easy results, okay? Now, let's get back to business. Let's see who's with us tonight. We have Lestari, Nepal. Hello. We have Araceli with us from Mexico, I believe. We have Chris from Brazil. We have Lestaris from Indonesia. Yeah, it is unbelievable. You haven't joined us for a long time, so it's great to have you with us. I see that some of you guys know each other already. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Again, guys, another thing I want to mention is that if you haven't already, if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, please think about joining us on YouTube, because that's where I put the recordings of the previous episodes. So if you miss part of the live show or miss it altogether, you can watch it on the YouTube channel. That's the only place I put recordings now. So scan the QR code or go to The Grammar Detective 2, at The Grammar Detective 2 on YouTube. I had to start a new channel this year, but one by one, all the old episodes are being posted there. All right? So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where most of the activity is, most of the videos. Who else is with us? Tesfalam is with us from UAE. Welcome. Thanks for joining. I think you were here last week. I want to apologize to a viewer, and I don't remember her name or his name, but a few weeks ago, somebody asked a fascinating question in the chat thread, but we ran out of time that evening for me to answer their question. I'd like to devote an entire episode to answering their question, and it was related to using the word so. So if any of you remember who that was, or if you're connected to that person who asked how to connect sentences with so and how to use so, please let them know to get in touch with me on YouTube. You can leave a comment and I'll receive it as a message. But I want to make sure that they, get the answer they were looking for. It's the challenge with this show. Everyone's got a lot of questions and I want to address all of them, but sometimes we run out of time. I'm limited here at my Hard-Boiled English studio as to how long I can live stream because it gets incredibly hot in my studio. And right now my city is in its springtime and it's getting hotter and hotter by the day. And usually within the early months of summer, like May, I have to start shutting the live stream down for the summer. It just gets too hot in here. You might not think that in Canada we have hot weather, but our summers are incredibly hot. And if you're indoors with studio lights and cameras and computers, I cook. Sitara is here. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move to our English Mystery of the Week shortly. I'm just going to check on another platform. Let's see who's watching there. We are streaming to a lot of platforms these days, and I'm sort of trying to research which platforms people actually watch the show on. We know everyone watches on Facebook and YouTube, and sometimes LinkedIn, although not often. I want to make sure that I'm reaching people. We have also with us Isabel. Isabel's with us. Great to see you. Welcome, welcome. Now we'll get to our mystery of the week in a moment. And it'll probably take, 2/3 of the show, most of the show. But, please don't hesitate to ask me questions in the comment thread. I'll try to get to them after I've addressed the main mystery of the week. And if not, I'll take a photo of your question and answer it next week. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. And please put comments on the videos. Ask questions on the comments. Ask questions based on the video, whatever. I review comments every day. I don't get a lot of them, so it's not a lot of work to look at them. But it's great to hear from you and what you think of the videos. Or if you have other questions about the videos because you didn't understand something, please let me know and I can address it on an upcoming show. The other thing I would suggest is to join the WhatsApp group, Grammar Gumshoes. And the link for that is down below in the description box. You can also join my private members club. There are free and paid membership programs. Just scan the QR code, go there, sign in, and choose the level that you want to join in. And free one is fine. And I also will post things there, materials, resources. Eventually, soon, I will host Zoom conversation clubs there. We'll do all kinds of different things. So check that out, Members Club. But most important is to subscribe to the YouTube channel and share it with your friends, right? The more people we get watching this show, the better success we can have with it, and I can continue with it. Obviously, and of course, if you feel generous and you want to support the show financially, for as little as $1 per month, that money adds up and helps me continue this show. You may not realize it because it's a free show to watch. It costs me a lot of money every week to deliver this show. And I don't make money on this show. This is a non-profit program, and it costs me money. It's a hobby for me. It's not my job. So if you feel generous and you would like to be a supporter, you can go to Patreon and support the show for as little as $1 a month. Canadian, that is. And I know that's a lot of money for some people, and I don't expect anything, but if you feel like supporting the show, I would appreciate it. All right. Did I miss anyone? Has anyone joined us that I haven't said hello to? Okay, well, let's get to our mystery of the week, shall we? And this one, again, is a question that has never been asked on the show previously. This is the first time somebody has asked this question. It's a fascinating question, and it's almost one of those questions somebody probably should have asked a long time ago because it addresses a very common grammar structure that is a little bit mysterious. So, without further ado, let's get to our mystery of the week. I'll see you on the other side. Where are we? Okay, here we go. Welcome back, guys. Okay, so this week's mystery is the case of the shrinking clause. Now, this mystery is the result of this question. I forgot who asked me this, but someone asked me this in the WhatsApp Grammar Gumshoes group. It's a fascinating question. Why do adjectives sometimes go after a noun? Of course, we're all familiar with the adjectives that go before a noun. For example, the pen, the red pen, right? Red is an adjective before the noun pen. This is a red pen. That's the most common position for adjectives, and that's what you're taught as a beginner, right? But there are cases, such as these two examples, where a clear adjectival sort of word comes after the noun. And we feel that it's an adjective. We feel that it's describing the noun. For example, we have this one. The report generated will show the information. Okay, we have report, that's the subject, and it's also a noun. And then immediately after it, we have this word generated, which kind of looks like a verb, but we feel that it's describing the report, right? Because our main verb is here, will show. It's a future tense expression. Will is the modal will, show is the verb. And then we have the object, the information. So here we have an adjective form after the noun, not before. Very mysterious. In the other example, I have to peek behind the camera, it says, we have a meeting scheduled at 9 a.m. Meeting, here is the object. Subject is we, verb is have, right? A meeting is the object. We have a meeting. A meeting is a noun. And then immediately after it, we have this word, scheduled. And it looks like a verb form, looks like the past tense of schedule, the verb schedule. But we also know that schedule can be a noun. We also know that sometimes these kind of past verbs can be used as adjectives. For example, Paul is a married man. Married man. Married is an adjective. It describes the man. Yet here, it comes after the noun. And in this case, it's the object. We have a meeting scheduled at 9 a.m. So we have to ask ourselves, what the heck is going on here? And the question is a good one. Why? Why? I love why questions, by the way. They are the most complex questions to explore. And a lot of beginners ask the question why, or feel the need to ask the question why, but maybe can't understand the answer. You guys tend to be intermediate or above or advanced, and I feel that you're capable of understanding a more complex explanation, which is what this show is built on. So let's take a look at the board. I've presented the first sentence, and I want to look closely at it. It says, the report generated will show the following information, right? And let's identify the parts. I've said this before. When you want to understand what's happening in a sentence, identify the parts in terms of parts of speech. So I said we have, let me just create a little, we have the subject, we have this mysterious word. Let's say it's an adjective for now. We have the modal, we have the verb, we have the following information. And this is basically the object. This is actually an adjective with ing. Okay? And we feel this description happening here. We can feel that the word generated is describing the report, but it comes after the word report, which is very mysterious. And this is what we're going to look at. Now, what makes this mysterious for a language learner like yourselves, as opposed to a native speaker, is what is really happening here. Native speakers will learn a larger structure and then they'll learn this. So when they encounter this, the meaning is expressed to them. Okay, I'm going to show you what's really happening here. If you look closely, we actually have two ideas being expressed. Two ideas being expressed and squeezed together. So let's find out what those ideas are. The report generated will show the following information. We have a main idea, right? And it's made of the subject, the verb, and the object. That's always the main idea. Sometimes we don't have an object, but the clause, right? A clause is a subject plus a verb, plus it expresses a complete idea, even if it's small. So the subject and the verb really express the main idea. And what are they? The report will show the following information. The report will show the following information. This is a different idea. This is a descriptive idea. So let's pull this out and we can really see what's going on here. The report will show the following information. Is that a clause? Yes, we have a subject, we have a verb. Right? That's a complete idea. The report will show the following information. That's a clause. That's an independent clause because it's a subject, it's a verb, and it expresses a complete idea. So that is an independent clause. It's perfectly able to be by itself like that. What's this? I want to suggest that this idea is really this. The report has been generated. The report has been generated. Okay? So we have this idea. The report will show the following information. We have another idea. The report has been generated. By who? By the staff, let's say. And if you look closely at that idea, you'll see a very specific grammar. The report has been generated by the staff. Let's say a business, right? What kind of structure is that? I think you all recognize that it is a passive structure. This is actually the subject. This is actually the object. This is the verb, and this is the be verb. But it's present perfect. Okay? That's a passive. The report has been generated by the staff. And when you see it in the future, it will show the following information. But sometime in the past, the report has been generated by the staff, or we could say also, the staff generated the report. This is a passive. But now we have two sentences. And as always with English, if we can squeeze it into a smaller structure with the same meaning, we do it. Why? I think it has to do with British and North American culture, which values efficiency in industry, in business, and in communication. If we can say something quicker with the same meaning, English users tend to. Rather than putting a lot of extra words we don't need, we cut out the words we don't need, and we make a more concise, direct expression. North Americans especially tend to believe that things like time is money, the capitalist Western value of efficiency, right? And it's in the language. As long as we can keep the meaning in a smaller structure, the smaller structure is better. And I do subscribe to this, especially in things like writing. And also, when we're talking to someone, we want to give our meaning and our expression directly, clearly, and precisely to our listener quickly, because we want them to speak or comment on it, and they're waiting for their turn. So we have two sentences here. Two sentences, okay, one sentence is better than two. So if we can squeeze these together, it's a good idea. It's desirable. Okay. Now, I don't know exactly how to pronounce this, so I'm going to say Mersha. Mersha? Mersha? Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It was your question, right? Thank you. So here we go. So we have these two sentences, these two ideas, and we've seen how we started like this with the adjective after the noun, and I said that this is really two ideas. The report will show the following information. The report has been generated by the staff or by someone, right? And if we know who the someone is, probably we'll just not say it. So we can eliminate that subject because when we're talking to our listener, let's assume they know who generated the report or who generates reports usually, the staff or the research department, let's say. But what my point is, we have two ideas here. One is the main idea. The report will show the following information. Which report? The report generated by the staff. Okay, so how do we squeeze two big ideas into one idea? Well, here's what we often do. Here's what you can do. Let me just clean the board a little bit. You can use something we call a relative clause or an adjective clause. I prefer the word adjective clause because it's really a clause acting as an adjective. And just to refresh your memory, a clause is a subject plus a verb plus a complete idea. Okay? That's a clause. And if we have a clause, we can use it as an adjective. And if we have an adjective, we can describe a noun. So, one way to smash together two complete ideas, right? The report will show the following information. That's a complete idea. The report has been generated by the staff or by somebody. And that's the subject of a passive structure. Here's how we can do it. We can say, and what the beautiful thing about doing this, of course, is we can cut out repetition. And we have some repetition here. We have report and report. English values efficiency and directness. If we can avoid repetition, let's do it. Okay? The report will show the following information. Which report? The report, where am I? The report that has been generated. The report that has been generated. That's an adjective clause, right? This is what we call a relative pronoun. And this whole adjective clause can describe the report. Now we have the word twice, so we don't want to repeat that, do we? So let's move the adjective clause up here and describe the noun. And let me clear the board so you can see this nice and clearly. Remember what we're doing here. We're putting together two complete ideas in a more efficient and direct sentence. So we don't have repetition and we don't have two sentences. We have one nice sentence. Right? Now we have one. The report. Which report? The report that has been generated by somebody will show the following information. We still have our main subject, the report. We still have our main verb, and we still have our object. So there's our main idea, but in the middle of that, we have this adjective clause. Right? And a clause is a subject plus verb, and it's a complete idea. And we're going to use it as an adjective. And adjective clauses connect to the noun after the noun with a relative pronoun. Right? The report, which report? The report that has been generated will show the following information. The pen that Paul is holding is blue. That's two ideas. The pen is blue. Which pen? The pen that Paul is holding. Two ideas smashed together. The pen that Paul is holding is blue. So now we have a main clause and a smaller adjective clause, right? The relative pronoun is acting as the subject. And we have the be verb, and we have the main verb. This is a passive. Remember, it was a passive structure. Okay? Relative pronoun has been generated. So this is present perfect passive. But it's an adjective clause. This is describing the report. Look closely at that, guys. The report. Which report? That has been generated. What about it? It will show the following information. Take a close look at that while I wipe this. So this is one way to pack two ideas together. One is the main idea and its future, and one is a clause that's describing the subject, giving us information about the subject. It tells us which report we're talking about. So this is descriptive, and it modifies the report and makes it specific. It's the report that has been generated by the staff or the researcher or the boss, and it will show the following information. It's two ideas smashed together into one sentence, right? And this adjective clause comes after the noun. Remember the question. Why do adjectives sometimes come after a noun? It's a brilliant question because it's so common and we see it in so many different ways. And we know it's describing, but we're also taught, right? You guys are taught when you're learning English. Adjectives come before the noun. The blue pen. Blue is an adjective, right? The white ball, right? The cute bunny, right? The cute's an adjective. Bunny is a noun. Cute bunny, adjective first. But sometimes the adjective comes after. The key to this mystery is that this is an adjective clause. That's why we're using a verb here. And in fact, this verb happens to be in passive present perfect, right? We have has been generated. Has is the auxiliary, be is the verb, but it's be verb. And then we have another verb in participle, past participle form, has been generated. Present perfect would just be has generated. The presence of the be in past participle form tells us it's a passive. The report has been generated by somebody, a subject. This is a passive. Remember when we pulled it out and showed the full idea, it was a passive structure. The report has been generated by somebody, the staff, the boss, the coworker. The report, which report? That has been generated. What about it? It will show the following information. Now, if you look, that's still a long sentence. And I told you that in English, especially in British and North American culture, which values efficiency and directness, North America even more than the UK, probably because of the capitalist business focus in North American culture. Time is money, get the other person the message quickly and efficiently. Because of that, over history, English has learned all kinds of creative ways to get smaller and smaller with the same meaning. And the key to this mystery is something we call reduced clauses. Now, we've already packed two sentences into one, right? The report will show the following information. Which report? The report that has been generated, or the report has been generated by someone. We've squeezed those together by using an adjective clause. But these impatient North American English users want to make that even smaller. So they've created over history, over time, the language has evolved to reduce even more. And here's what happens. The relative pronoun is there just to act as a subject to make this clause, right? A clause needs a subject and a verb and express an idea. Okay, well, what if I don't want a clause? Well, if you don't want a clause, you don't need a subject. And if you don't want a clause, you don't need a verb. So what are you left with? We are left with a reduced clause that implies the same information. It implies the same information. We know it's there like a ghost hiding behind the structure. But now we have a much smaller structure. More direct, more concise, but the same idea. The report, Which report? Generated. The report generated. What are we implying here? We're implying a larger meaning. The report that has been generated. We know adjective, if an adjective comes after a noun, it must be representing an adjective clause, because only adjective clauses come after the noun. Okay? So we recognize that. We feel it as adjectival, even though it's a past participle from the verb. Here's our main verb, and there's our object. Look how concise that sentence is. Look how concise, how small. We started with 2 full sentences with lots of words, and now we've reduced it down to a much tighter, direct sentence, but it conveys the same meaning, right? The report. Which report? The report that has been generated. What about it? It will show the following information. We have 2 complete ideas squeezed into one sentence. In fact, it's squeezed into one clause now. Subject, verb, object. That's one clause. This whole meaning, this whole adjectival clause meaning is now squeezed into one word. How do we know that? We feel it because we do know the rule that adjectives go before the noun. Oops. Before the noun. So if an adjective, if a past participle verb comes after this, we recognize that it must be an adjective. And the only adjectives that come after the noun are adjective clauses. So very quickly, this takes on adjectival meaning, even though it's a verb. And we know it's not the main verb of the sentence because it comes here. Will show the following information. So the question was, why do adjectives sometimes come after the noun? And the answer is, adjective clauses come after the noun. And adjective clauses, as we've seen, can be reduced. They can be shrunk. We can shrink them to make the overall sentence a little smaller. Why is that good? Because it gets your idea to the listener or the reader quickly, directly. Same meaning, same idea, more directly. Saves time, and time is money in some cultures, so it's preferable. If we can do it, we do it. Now, let's try that one more time with the second example. Okay, the second example is we have a meeting scheduled at 9 a.m. How straight is that, guys? Hard for me to see here. Okay, we have a meeting scheduled at 9 a.m. Let's break it down. Let's identify the parts of the sentence, the parts of speech. We have a subject. We. The next word is a verb, have. Simple present. We have a meeting. Great, that's an object. At the sentence, we have a meeting. Scheduled. This seems to be another one of these participles, adjectives. And then we have a preposition phrase, a time. We can call this a prep phrase. We can call it a time adverb. It's all of these things. It tells us when the action happens. Now, just like in the first example, this is actually 2 ideas, right? This is actually 2 ideas squeezed together. Let's pull them apart again. We have a meeting at 9 a.m. That's one idea. Which meeting? Well, we have a meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Well, if the meeting is tomorrow morning, and we already know it, then in the past, somebody scheduled a meeting, right? So we can say the meeting was scheduled And let's say, by our boss yesterday. Let's add some meaning here. We have a meeting at 9 a.m. today or tomorrow, doesn't really matter. The meeting, which meeting? The meeting was scheduled by our boss yesterday. And if you look closely, the second idea, again, is a passive structure. The meeting by our boss yesterday. The meeting was scheduled by our boss yesterday. That's a passive. The active version would be our boss scheduled a meeting. Our boss scheduled a meeting, the meeting yesterday. That would be the active. But this is a passive idea because we're focused on the meeting, not the boss. In fact, we don't even care who scheduled it. The subject doesn't really matter, and that's why we're going to drop it. But, you know, that could be the idea here. It's a passive. When you make a passive, you're allowed to drop off the subject. It's one of the reasons you choose a passive, so you can get rid of the subject, because everyone knows who schedules our meetings, the boss. Okay, that's a full idea. It's a clause. It has a subject and a verb, and it's a complete thought, a complete idea. We have a meeting at 9 a.m. Great. Which meeting? We have lots of meetings. Well, there's a particular meeting at 9 a.m., and the meeting was scheduled by somebody. So that is a separate idea. It's also a clause, right? We have a missing subject, we have a verb, and we have an object. Complete idea. The meeting was scheduled. That's a passive idea. The weather was changed. The schedule was changed. The movie was altered. I don't know. There's lots of different passive expressions you can make. And again, we have two sentences. We want to squeeze them into one. And mind you, over here we had an adjective clause reduced describing a subject. Here, we're going to describe the object, not the subject, right? Okay, let's expand this and create our adjective clause. Right? We have a meeting. Which meeting? The meeting that was scheduled let's say by our boss, and this again is the subject, so we don't really need it. We can cut it out. So now we have collapsed two sentences into one using an adjective clause, right? We have a meeting. Which meeting? The meeting that, relative pronoun, be verb plus past participle. That's still a passive. It's an adjective clause, and the adjective clause describes the object. Tells us about the meeting. Which meeting? The meeting that was scheduled at 9 a.m. by our boss. Okay, so now we have an adjective clause describing backwards into the sentence to the noun, right? And that's why we have a past participle, because this is a passive. That's why that's a past participle. And adjective clauses come after nouns. But English users, we're not satisfied. We want to shrink it even more. So what do? We get rid of the relative pronoun. And if you get rid of the relative pronoun, you no longer have a subject in this clause. So you have to get rid of the be verb. And you collapse the past participle. Let's get rid of the subject. And we reduce our clause even smaller. Okay? We have a meeting scheduled at 9 a.m. And this is a past participle. What's it doing here when the main verb is here? Why is the verb over here? Well, it's not acting as a verb. It's acting to represent the adjective clause. And adjective clauses describe backwards to the noun. They don't describe forward like the blue pen. They describe backwards to the noun that they're right beside. Okay? This is what we call reduced clauses. So there are a couple of rules about reducing. In fact, there are many ways to reduce clauses. As I said, English comes from places like the UK and North America, and especially in North America, but also in the UK, we have a culture that's represented in the language, and there's a culture of efficiency and directness, more so in North America even. If we can say the same meaning in a shorter amount of time, it's worthwhile. Okay? So let me show you a couple of ways, a couple of things to remember, a couple of sort of rules we can hold on to here. Here's the first one. Where is it? Okay. Adjective clauses with passive verbs are reduced to past participles. The relative pronoun and the be verb are cut out. They're omitted. So for example, the schools that were closed soon reopened. That were closed is our adjective clause, and it's a passive. Closed is the past participle. We can shrink it even more. The schools closed, soon opened. Okay, so this is the rule. If the adjective clause is a passive verb, we're allowed to reduce it. And passive expressions have that be verb. This is important. Now, I'm just going to leave that up there for a moment. And just to remind you here, this was a passive verb, right? We said that the report had been or has been or was generated. That's a passive. The meeting was scheduled. That's a passive. Was scheduled by someone. That's a passive. Has been scheduled by someone. That's present perfect passive. But it's still a passive. So if we have a passive adjective clause, we can reduce it. How do we do it? We cut out the relative pronoun that or which, doesn't matter. Relative pronouns can be that, which, who, where, even when or whom are used. We can cut that out and cut out the be verb, and we're left with the past participle. Okay? There are other ways to do this. Look at this one. Adjective clauses in the present progressive form are reduced to participle phrases. A phrase loses its verbal meaning, okay? And a phrase is more than one word. The relative pronoun and the be verb are omitted. Now, these are not passives. Look at this. I went to a movie. What kind of movie? That was showing. That was showing is the adjective clause. I went to a movie that was showing at my local cinema. And we reduce that to, I went to a movie showing at my local cinema. Okay, we cut out the relative pronoun that, we cut out the be verb was, and we're left with the present participle. I went to a movie showing at a local cinema. And that word showing is describing the noun movie. Pretty cool, huh? Let's look at another way to reduce. Adjective clauses with active verbs in simple present, future, past, present perfect, and past perfect form are reduced to present participles. Well, that covers a lot of possibilities, doesn't it? But they're all adjective clauses. So what we're talking about here, guys, are adjective clauses because they come after the noun, right? They come after the noun. Adjective clauses come after the noun. And if we can squeeze them down to one word that represents that adjective clause, it can still act like an adjective, describing backwards to the noun. Let's look at an example. The boss, which boss? The boss, who will hire me? Who will hire me? That's an adjective clause, but it's future tense, right? So it qualifies. Adjective clauses with active verbs in the future. The boss who will hire me next year is rich. Well, that's a lot of words. Let's reduce it. The boss hiring me next year is rich. The boss hiring me next year is rich. So this still expresses the future tense, but it expresses this adjectival description of the word boss, which is a noun. Now guys, there are all kinds of ways to do this. I'm just going to show you the main, most common 4. Number 4 is this one. Adjective clauses with the verb be followed by an adjective phrase, not an adjective clause. Look at this. An adjective clause with the verb be followed by an adjective phrase, which means an adjective expression with more than one word, are reduced to the adjective phrase. Right? So we can cut out the whole adjective clause. The relative pronoun and be verb are deleted. Okay? Look at this example. People, which people? Who were successful, who, relative pronoun, were, that's a be verb. Successful is an adjective. Right? We can make clauses like that. Subject, verb, subject, be verb, adjective. Paul is happy. You are kind. Right? Subject, be verb, adjective. People who were successful from business. So here's the adjective phrase. Successful from business. Not just successful, successful from business. That whole phrase is the adjective expression. Okay? People who were successful from business attended the conference. And we can reduce that. We cut out the relative pronoun, cut out the verb, and we're left with the adjective expression. People, which kind? People successful from business attended the conference. Okay? So I know this is a lot, but this is a fascinating way to use fewer words to express a powerful idea. In fact, ultimately what we're doing here is we're squeezing an entire adjective clause down to one word. And that's pretty cool. Now, I've said a lot here. I'm just going to drink a little water because I've been ill lately, and part of my symptoms are a sore throat and cough. Now, I'm just going to look back at the chat and see if I missed anyone to say hello. Fire English. Hello, teacher. I'm from Oman. Fire English. Great name. Welcome. Okay, so am I pronouncing your name well? Mersha? Marsha? Hopefully. Or is it Mirza? Mirza. I'm not sure. Jonas Taleb is with us from Morocco. And Isabel, I had to explain to her. No, because had is your past tense verb. And then you have to, which is a preposition, with another past tense verb. You don't need two past tense verbs. And in fact, if you have to plus verb, that's an infinitive. So it should be, I had to explain, infinitive verb, explain. I had to explain to her. I had to explain English to her, something. So to doesn't work with past tense verb. To is part of the infinitive verb. Right? I had to explain, I had to teach, I had to cook, I had to study, I had to learn, I had to talk. To plus infinitive verb. And had is your past tense verb. So this doesn't quite work. Great. Now, do you guys have any questions about this concept, this reduced clauses or the shrinking clauses? Any questions about this? Remember what we've done here. We've started with the original. We've broke it open and showed that there are two ideas really there. And then we shrunk those ideas back to an adjective clause. And then we reduced the adjective clause to a single word representing the adjective clause idea. So this is what we call the technique of reducing clauses. And it's incredibly powerful. Now, when you're learning a language, especially in your writing classes, the more vocabulary you learn, the more grammar you learn, you want to show your teacher that you can do it. You want to demonstrate your language skill. So often you try to write longer sentences. Look, teacher, I can write a long sentence. I'm succeeding. And that's good. That's how you learn. As you become a more advanced user of the language, longer sentences are not necessarily better. Right? Once you develop the skill at making a longer sentence, a full expression, a more complex idea, you also need to learn how to pull that back and control it. And then try to express the idea as clearly and precisely as possible with as few number of words as possible. That's really the goal of English. English works best when it's concise. There are 2.5 million words to choose from. So if you can replace a sentence with a word, the word is better. It's more powerful. It's more efficient. Fewer words, same meaning. Right? That's efficiency and effectiveness. Okay? Excuse me. So any questions, guys? Any clarifications needed for this concept? Reducing adjective clauses. Yeah, so you know that present participle like ing, right? I went to an exciting movie, right? That's exciting as an adjective before the movie, noun. And past participle, something like married. Paul is a married man. That's the past participle before the noun. And I think you know, Jonas, that the only time adjectives come after the noun is when they're adjective clauses. So if you see a past participle after a noun, it must be representing an adjective clause that's been squeezed into the word, right? Because there is no other option. We don't think of that as a verb. We think of that as a past participle being used as an adjective, but it's describing backwards the way adjective clauses do. And now that we've talked about it, Jonas, I'm sure you're going to see this everywhere because it's incredibly common, right? Yes, exactly. The very popular, very common. I wouldn't say popular because popular implies that people want to do it because they love doing it. Like, I don't know, Justin Bieber is a popular singer because people like his music or like him. I don't think people choose to do this because they like it. I think they do it because it's useful. So maybe the correct adjective here is common. There are very common cases. It's very common. Right? And that's why you should learn it, because it's useful, right? If we can say the same idea, if we can say two ideas with one word, gosh, that's powerful. That's direct. That is saying a lot with a little. That's efficiency. Why is that good? Well, if you're speaking, the other person wants to speak. They don't want to wait for you to say 1,000 words so they can speak, right? So deliver your message quickly so they have a turn. And if you're writing something, efficiency works because there might be thousands, hundreds of thousands of words to read in a book, for example. So if you can say the same idea without losing meaning, that's important. We don't want to lose our idea or our meaning. But if you can say it with fewer words, but with the same idea expressed, it's better. It's more direct. It's efficient use of language. And English works well that way. Doesn't mean all languages do. Your own language might not work like that. Some languages are best used when they're full of words, when there's long, winding expressions. That might be considered beautiful language in your culture, not in English. English is a language, partially because of the culture from the UK and eventually North America, that values reserve. Don't say a lot of words if you don't have to. That values efficiency, right? Time is money. Make things happen directly with as little effort and as few words as possible. That's efficiency. Every language comes from a specific culture, and that culture's values and philosophies and beliefs are built into the language. That's why learning a language gives you a window into a different culture in a way that other things like movies or fashion or music never do. The language is like a window into understanding that culture. It's one of the powerful things about learning a language. You might already know this as you've learned English. You start to understand British or North American or Australian culture a little deeper, because the language allows you to see into the soul of a culture. And if I studied your language, whether it's Malaysian or Arabic or Russian or Ukrainian or Spanish or Portuguese, if I studied your languages, I would start to understand your culture better, even if I knew nothing else about your culture. If I never knew your fashions, your music, your food, your architecture, your art, your cinema, if I knew none of that, I would understand something about your culture through your language alone. It's one of the things that makes language learning so powerful for you guys. One of the reasons I love helping learners develop their English proficiency is because it gives you a window into my culture, which I'd love to share with you, even though we're thousands of kilometers away from each other. Excuse me, guys. I'm going to get some water here. Please say hello or put some questions there for me. Is this clear to everyone? Give me a thumbs up. Can we do that? Is there a emoji function on the chat here? I can't see it. I think present participle describes subject and past participle. Actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Subjects and objects usually are nouns, right? And any noun can be described using an adjective clause. In fact, you can describe the subject and the object with adjective clauses, and you can reduce those clauses. So it doesn't matter the object. You can do this. You can have a noun with a reduced clause 100 times in a sentence if you really want to. You could make a huge sentence. So there's no limit. Let me just review, Jonas, because maybe you missed this. There are basically 4 ways to reduce. One is what am I doing here? Chat. Adjective clauses with passive verbs are reduced to past participles. So the schools that were closed soon reopened. In this case, it's the subject, but it doesn't matter. It could be the object, but there's no object here. The schools closed soon opened. So with passive verbs, you reduce them to past participles. And the adjective clause can describe the subject or object, depending on your sentence. Doesn't matter. It just describes nouns. Adjective clauses in the present progressive form are reduced to participle phrases. So I went to a movie, and the movie here is the object. I is the subject. The movie that was showing at my local cinema becomes I went to a movie showing at my local cinema. Right? This is not a passive. Third example, adjective clauses with active verbs in simple present, future, past. Doesn't matter. The boss who will hire me, so this is describing the subject, hire me next year is rich. So here there is no object. But it really doesn't matter. Adjective clauses describe nouns. Now the adjective clause followed by the be with an adjective phrase reduces to the adjective phrase. People who were successful from business attended the conference. People successful from business attended the conference. So Jonas, your question is a good one. Excuse me, gosh. Present participle describes subject and past participle describes an object. No. Past participle describes, we use the past participle when we're collapsing a passive. That's the key. Passive adjective clause, right? And present participle we use for subjects or objects, it doesn't matter, to describe the other verb forms that we saw, I think this one. No, this one, right? Adjective clauses with active verbs in simple present, future, blah, 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 reduced to present participles. So the difference here is passive. Adjective clauses with passive, they reduce to the past participle. Why? Because passive grammar uses the past participle. The schools that were closed is a passive, right? The report that was generated or has been generated, that's a passive. We have a meeting that was scheduled, that's a passive. So passives, right? We keep the passive past participle. It makes sense, right? But all the other forms, future, present, doesn't matter, we shrink those to the present participle, the ing. All right, thumbs up. Okay, so you can. Great, thumbs up. Okay, so we have Ludmila from Grammar Chat. Hi, finally I get up. Great, thank you for joining us. Yeah, doer, receiver, subject, object, it doesn't matter. You can use an adjective clause for anyone, any noun. The question is the adjective clause an active sentence or a passive? If it's active, present participle, ing. If it's a passive, we use the past participle. Kind of makes sense because past participle is already part of the passive. The man who lives next to me is kind becomes the man living next to me is kind. Exactly, Suwan. The man who lives, that's present tense, active. The man who lives next to me, right? And that shrinks down to the man living next to me. Great. Wonderful. Hand pink waving by Tony Navarro. Lovely, but I don't know what hand pink waving means. But it sounds great. Chinu is with us. Chinu, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Teacher Paul, yes. I am from Oman. Welcome. Just going to grab some water, guys. My voice is going. Excuse me. I think I should sign off now because I'm starting to lose my voice again. And I don't want to cough because my microphone is close and I'll make an explosion in your ears. So I think it's a good time to say goodnight. We've covered a lot of material here. Hopefully it's clear. If you need a little more time, you can watch the recording after the show. I'll post it on YouTube. This live link, I want to clear this up because we had some questions last week. Before the live stream, I share the live link with everyone. After the show streams live, that link is no longer useful. I shut it down. Why? Because I want to post the recording of the show, not the recording of the live stream, but an uploaded recording. Okay, it's a little bit different, and it affects the way YouTube promotes the show. Like the direct recording doesn't get promoted, but an uploaded recording gets promoted. So I prefer that. So about an hour after the show is over, I will post the recording. So if you missed the show, don't use the live link anymore. Wait for an hour and I'll post the recording link, okay? Thank you, Isabel. I guess, guys, I should say goodnight because I'm losing my voice any moment now. So thank you for meeting me here tonight. Thank you for this great question. Mirza, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but thank you for your question. It's an excellent question. And as I said earlier, yours is a question that's never been asked on the show. A lot of times, newcomers ask a question that we maybe covered last year. And so I just refer them to check out the recording so I don't have to repeat myself a million times. Because there are a lot of common questions that everyone has. Yours was a question that had never been asked on this show before. So thank you very much. It gave us a new English mystery to explore and share with everyone. And I hope I've explained it in a way that is understandable. I hope our case is closed. If not, you can ask me questions later, or on the recording video, you can ask questions in the comment thread. Okay? There's always a way to watch these shows and get your questions answered. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me this evening. It's been wonderful to be with you, as always. And Hard Boiled English Live with the Grammar Detective will be back next week. And until that time, thank you for studying English. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. Until I see you again, please take care of your health. Keep studying English. And as always, stay cool. Watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.